Y'all, I'm so excited. Everyone is coming in today for our financial aid webinar. We had a ton of people sign up for this one. We had hundreds of schools interested in this topic, and I am so excited to jump in here. Don't forget, y'all, our chat. Our chat is always chatting. We always have a really fun chat on our webinars. Right, Rhonda? Rhonda's always in
Oh
our
yeah,
chat.
lots of back and forth.
We have good chat. So as you guys know, hey, Chelsea. Chelsea just turned 40 and looks 30. So happy birthday. I want you all to tell us what you're binging. We were just talking about what we've been binging. Kathy, what have you been watching lately?
So we've been watching a show called Roswell, New Mexico, kind of a sci-fi theme.
Okay.
Takes place in, there's aliens and everything else in it. Some of it's silly, but some of it keeps you hooked. So it's a good one. Recommend.
Sounds great. And then Rhonda, what have you been binging?
Oh, mine's so sweet. Virgin River. I just
Okay.
finished season 6, so it was very racy at the end. I don't know if they'll have another season, but it was good.
Well, good. Jackie, I don't know what you were binging. What are you watching lately?
My husband and I just finished The Bear.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know
yes,
that one.
chef.
Yes.
I love The Bear. We just
I
finished
loved it. I
it.
loved it too, but it was very stressful.
Yeah.
Did it make you anxious, like listening to them bicker? Yeah. It's a great show. It's a really great show.
There's nothing better than the Christmas episode in season 2. I've watched it 3 times. It's so good. Um, what's her face won an Academy. Jamie Lee Curtis won an Academy or won an Emmy for it. I mean, it's the writing is so good. Rhonda, have you seen The Bear?
No, I just wrote it
Yeah,
down.
talk about this.
That's
It's
my
on
next.
Hulu. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I don't
Dirty
have
on
Hulu.
White. You don't have Hulu?
No, I'll use somebody's login.
Uh,
I'll find somebody's.
okay, Morgan just watched the Amanda and Knox thing. I've been wanting to do that one.
Oh,
I got the
that
first
one.
episode then.
Yeah, I heard that one's really good. There's some really good ideas here in the chat. This is really the reason people jump onto our webinars.
I know, who needs financial aid? Let's just
They're
talk
like,
TV.
we just need ideas on what to watch. So there's some really, really good stuff in there. And I think I'm the only one not watching The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Oh,
Everyone is talking about it. So of course we have so many people in the chat who've mentioned that one. April, Bachelor in Paradise. Listen, y'all know I'm watching this one because the Goldens are on it. And I never miss an episode. And it's good. Next week's the finale. So I'm stoked to see who wins $500,000. And they at the end, y'all, they get to choose. Like, do you want to stay with your partner or do you want the money?
oh, well, that's cool.
That is dirty. Obviously, money, right? That's kind of what we're going for. So, guys, I'm really excited for today's webinar because last month we had such an exciting webinar, which was filled with knowledge from school owners from all over the country. It was our school owner panel. I failed to bring on a female, and I want to apologize for that. I was on there, but I'm not a school owner. But what I did
Well,
have
no, you want to be the only female anyway.
I
so.
wanted to be the only female in the room. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I can sit at this table with the boys, but I wanted to have an all female webinar today, and that's what we have. And we're going to be talking about financial aid. So I want to introduce my all-star panel today. They all work at the same company. Rhonda is who I've known the longest, she's my vendor BFF. Everyone knows Rhonda and I together. Right? Rhonda, you were just at a conference. Was everyone like, where's Jen? I'm just
Yeah, yes, they are always asking where's Jen. So next week we'll be together though.
we will be back in Vegas together. Woo!
Watch out.
At NACAS. So Rhonda, tell everyone who you are if they don't know you already.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rhonda with Financial Aid Services in Genesis. I am the sales director there, and I am the lucky one that gets to travel around the company to represent FAS in Genesis, and that's where Jen and I had met, and I probably know a lot of you that are on the webinar today, and if not, I think you're going to be impressed with the knowledge that we have at FAS because I have some top-notch people from the company. They're going to talk all about
You brought her 2 besties at the company, so we're excited for them. And of course, I know Kathy also from the conference circuit. But Kathy, what do you do at FAS?
Well, I am the managing director at FAS. I've been here for 15 years, and I've actually been in the higher ed sector for, um, gosh, going on 25 years. I
So
mean, it's
you started when you were 10.
I
Wow.
did.
Incredible.
Um,
Right.
it's
Lots of knowledge. So you've seen a bunch of different reiterations of things going on. So Kathy today was like, we got stuff going on in FA. We got a lot to talk about.
absolutely do. And with, with this 25 years, my first 10 was actually working in a school and working with students. And now for 15 years at FAS, I'm working with schools. And so now I kind of see the challenges and the victories on both sides, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's been very rewarding for sure.
Well, good. Well, we're happy to have you. And Jackie, this is our first time meeting. I'm so excited to have you. What do you do at FAS?
Thank you. My name is Jackie Tuthill, and I work at FAS in the compliance team. I'm a senior consultant, and I primarily deal with general compliance questions, but I also back up the direct loan team. Prior to working at FAS, I've been at FAS since 2008, and I actually started in Title IV administration in 2002, working in a school as an FA counselor. So I've kind of run the gamut, and I know what you guys are going through. And so we try and give you guys as much support as we can.
Fantastic. Well, we're excited to have the FAS team on. We're going to be talking a little bit later about specifically what they do, how they work with schools. But we really just want to get into all the nitty gritty of FAFSA. So let me just preface this webinar by telling you why we came up with the idea for this month. And that was people are struggling with enrollment, right? Everyone wants more students. That's all we ever hear. People want more students. And so with training schools across the country and talking to schools and seeing what's working, we are seeing that if admissions can have a little bit more or a lot more financial aid knowledge, they are going to be better able to serve the prospect that they're meeting with. Instead of just saying, sorry, I can't answer questions about financial aid, you're going to have to talk to my FA rep about that. You're really turning a lot of people off because there's something about this generation where it's probably honestly the student loan debt crisis where everyone knows about student loans. It's not a secret anymore. People are afraid to take them out. Everyone's talking about finances. Now when a lead comes in to meet with admissions, most of the conversation wants to be about that. And if you just keep talking about why your program is so great, I'm telling you right now, that prospect is just like, but can I afford it? But can I afford it? But can I afford it? That's all they care about. And so I wanted to do a webinar as a dummy because I'm a dummy when it comes to admissions. I'm really good at marketing. I'm a TikToker. I know that aspect. I can teach admissions because I can teach sales. But I don't know a lot about financial aid. And so I wanted to create a webinar that we could have recorded, literally to send out people. If your FA person is not teaching you about financial aid and admissions, we're going to teach you. In addition, we have, guys, a couple hundred people who signed up that actually are FA reps. So I'm sure they're having lots of questions too. So we are going to kind of dumb this down a little bit. And really go through what is a FAFSA application. Let's go through it together. Kathy's going to walk us through an actual ISIR. We're going to read that together. We're going to ask lots of questions just to make sure we all understand everything on the FAFSA front. And we're going to talk about loans and grants, and Jackie's going to lend her expertise to that. And so also feel free to jump in the chat. If you have questions, I'll be monitoring that chat and we will get to it. So guys, let's jump in and talk about everything to do with FAFSA. Let's start with the application, Kathy. Sort of like elephant in the room. A lot of admissions people say I'm not allowed to help.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what they can do and what they can't do when it comes to assisting.
Yeah, very good question. That gets asked a lot. And basically, and I really like this theme that you're doing, Jen, because you're right. There's too much separation between admissions and financial aid. And when you have that cross training between admissions and financial aid, because financial aid should know a little bit about admissions too, right? I mean, you want to really be able to, speak to all of your students intelligently and be able to provide answers for them. you know, like my own children, they want answers immediately, you know,
Yeah.
and so the more knowledge you have, the more able you are to hook them into that admissions process. So with the FAFSA, okay, um, as whether you're admissions or financial aid, your job is only to assist with completing the FAFSA. Okay, that is all you can do. You cannot complete the FAFSA on behalf of the student. You cannot sign on behalf of the student, and this goes for the parent too. You cannot submit on behalf of the student. All right, and one thing that's really super important is that in order to even start the FAFSA, the student and the parents, they need to create an FSA ID on studentaid.gov. Okay.
Yep.
That is confidential. You should not be asking your student or their parents for their login information for the FAFSA. Okay. That is off limits. And so by assisting, you can have a designated computer or laptop in your office where you can sit with the student as they pull up their own FAFSA. Okay. And as they're working on it, you can help guide them through the process. You can answer questions if they have a question about, you know, how they should answer something about assets or anything like that. You can be there to assist them with that. So it's good for financial aid administrators and admissions if they're going to take on something like this, to really have an idea about what the FAFSA is even all about, some of the questions that are asked.
Mm-hmm.
Super important. But again, you know, really the guidance on this is that you are there to assist only and to not complete.
And
Okay.
to be clear, that means admissions also. And there's this whole like separation thing is honestly, it's a rumor. Like it's financial aid people, I don't know, afraid that their job is in jeopardy. I don't know what it is. I don't know where this started. Like I mean, to my understanding, they can't disperse funds and that's about it. Like absolutely admissions can be involved in help in assisting. Um and I love that there are FA reps on site to do that, but sometimes admissions people are more sales driven and are just have a better customer service approach. So it does make sense for admissions to help with this. So I'm trying not to step on too many toes here. Like I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone. I'm just trying to tell you however your school does it or whatever they're telling you, admissions can absolutely help. So dependent versus independent. Give us the quickie on that.
Okay, so independent versus dependent. Let's be clear first. You are not considered independent if you are self-supporting, if you're living on your own, you know, file your own taxes. All right, that's a big one that we come across where a student might say, well, I'm 23 years old, I've moved out of my house.
My parents don't help me. I pay all my bills. Yeah.
Um, that doesn't go like that. Okay. There are certain circumstances where that might go, which I'll touch base in a second, but dependency status is based on criteria from the federal government. Okay. So the federal government has certain criteria in which if you answer yes to any of this criteria, then you would be an independent student. For example, the one that probably frustrates students the most is that you need to be age 24 by January 1st on the day of that award year. Okay.
Okay.
That's why you might have students that are 22, 23 that are like, why aren't I independent? I've been out of my house 3 years, you know. Other criteria, if you are married, if you are a graduate student, if you are emancipated, legal guardianship, ward of the court, and then the last one, which we can touch on a little bit later, is homelessness. Okay, and deeming that. If you answer yes to any of those questions, then you will be deemed independent. Okay, if you cannot answer yes to those dependency questions, then you'll be a dependent student, and that's when parent information would be required on the FAFSA.
Okay, fantastic. And then what happens in those cases when someone doesn't have a relationship with their parents?
So that is a case-by-case decision, or case-by-case basis rather, and potentially based on the circumstances, a student can either apply for a professional judgment or a dependency override. However, again, what's really important to know is that you cannot request a dependency override for the mere fact that you are just self-supporting. Okay,
Okay.
there has to be an unusual or special circumstance to require that dependency override request. And a special circumstance is anything that has to deal with abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, abandonment, estrangement, incarceration. Okay, and again, everybody's situation or circumstance is different. And so that's why we say it's a case by case decision as to whether or not you could override a dependent student to be independent.
Who overrides it? Who makes that decision?
It could be the financial aid administrator, and what
Okay.
would happen is the student would need to provide documentation to support their unusual or special circumstance.
Okay. There's a couple questions then about in the chat when it comes to having a kid. If someone
Yes,
under 24 has a child, does that automatically make them independent?
it does if they're supporting that child more than 50%.
Okay, fantastic. And and Carrie literally said the same thing. So thank you, Carrie, for jumping in there. This is why I love the chat. The chat's like, I can also add our expertise. So y'all just keep on answering questions also. That's perfect. Okay. When it comes, so when you do, if you've already created an FSA ID and then you come in to tour a school a year or 2 years later, you go back into that same account?
Yep, you have an
Okay.
FFA ID, and then you can, when you open up the FAFSA, you just pick the appropriate award year for which FAFSA you would like to complete.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk specifically about the application.
Mhm.
By the way, when you're doing it, can you save it and come back to it?
Yes, you can. So what's really important about that, okay, is that if you are on the application and you want to stop it for whatever reason, okay,
Mhm.
you need to complete the page you're on and click next. All right, that will save all the information from that page back. Okay, if you don't if you don't click next, you'll lose that information on that page only.
Okay, awesome. And then before we jump in more about the application, there's another question in the chat. What documentation would be required for a student who has both parents incarcerated?
So it's always tricky. The first thing that we would ask for is, can you get documentation showing proof that they are incarcerated? Okay. And however you can get that, whether it's, logging onto a site where they're incarcerated to confirm anything that can confirm that. If they can't get some type of documentation like that, then you could always, last resort is personal statements from people that can attest that the parents are incarcerated.
Is it the same case then if someone has an abusive relationship with their parents?
Yep, exactly, exactly. You
Whether
always want
there's
to,
police reports or just anything in
Yeah, it's
writing,
usually a court report or something.
court
So,
report, yeah.
exactly. So we always go with, you want to try to get official, quote unquote, official documentation first. Like Rhonda said, a police report, anything that can show that this abuse or whatever actually happened. Again, worst case scenario, try to find some, people in your group that can attest to your situation and write on behalf of you.
yeah, I think
Okay.
the church too. I think that they've had, letters from there as well. I remember that in the past.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And then what if the dependent student did not have the child before 2023, just had a child this year, but we're
Mhm.
using 2023 taxes?
That's fine. So if you had a child this year, and you're completing the 25-26 FAFSA, as long as that child is born, okay, when you complete the FAFSA, they can be added onto your application. Okay, the
Okay.
child has to be born in the award year. And you used to in the past, this was way before, you were able to put an unborn child if you were pregnant and you were going to have that child within that award year, and you could prove that through,
Mhm.
a letter from your OBGYN type of thing. But now you cannot put an unborn child on your FAFSA, and you can only, if you have that child within the award year and you've already completed your FAFSA without them on there, then you can, in certain circumstances, update your FAFSA to now claim that child on there.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone just go ahead and cancel your call for the next hour. This is going to be a long webinar. You ever just know it? I'm like, crap, we're 20 minutes in and we got to get going. Okay. I'm like, great. I'm in the first section. The rest of the day is canceled. So okay, when you're doing your FAFSA, do you need to have your W-2s in front of you?
You should have them readily available, okay? So when you're completing the FAFSA, you have the option, if you grant consent on the FAFSA and you file taxes, to automatically transfer your tax information from the IRS over to your FAFSA. If that successfully comes over, that is considered verified per the Department of Education. No further information is needed. When you would need W-2s,
Is that automatic? Does it say it like as you're doing it? Like, yep, it worked.
Yep, it does. And there'll be a code, it's called code 200
Okay.
on your ISIR that will show that everything has been transferred successfully. Okay. Cases where you might need a W-2, if you are a non-filer and you earned income, but you were not required to file based on the filing threshold, then you would want to submit W-2s for your income earned from work and also to prove that you in fact were not required to file. All right, because sometimes you might get a parent that said, oh, I'm not required to file, but I earned income, and they provide their W-2 and it's for $50,000. And you're like, well, no, you were required to file because you earned that much money.
You're like, actually, you should be in jail. No, I'm kidding. So, well, what happens in that case where a parent has not filed their taxes? They should have and didn't. What happened?
They shouldn't, what they need to do is, with FAFSA simplification, when that was implemented, they went to using what's called prior tax information. So that means they're pulling taxes from 2 years ago. So for the 25-26 award year, we're using 2023 taxes. And the reason why they did that is because if you are required to file taxes and you had to do an extension on your taxes, well, that extension deadline has ended and you should have filed by now, okay, within those 2 years. And so you have a greater probability that taxes have all been filed and being reported properly. In the event that somebody did not file, they would, if you needed to have, say, an immediate idea of what their SAI score was going to be, that you could have them estimate on the ISIR, excuse me, and when they completed their taxes, you would update that information accordingly. Okay. If they just flat out didn't, and they were required to, and they refused to file, then they're kind of out of luck.
And if we have a parent that's just like, not like, let's say you're a dependent student and the parent is just like, I don't want to share that information. I'm sure this happens.
Oh, all the time.
It's none of my kids' business what I make, or I didn't file my taxes and I don't want to be fined. And they're just like, I don't want to do this. What happens in that case? Is this a case where you can override it, or is it just like, sorry, you can't?
Well, what's good is that with the transferring of ISIRs, it's transferring through something called the FADDX. And so what they do is when you provide consent to allow your taxes to be pulled over and transferred onto the ISIR, those figures are screened. You can't see them. Okay, nobody can see them. All right, even when I did my son's FAFSA, I couldn't see my own figures. All right. Yeah, so you can't see them. So the student will not be looking at their parents' tax information. All right, it will come over on the ISIR for the school to look at. Okay, but the student will not receive that information.
So it's just really kind of assuring them no one's going to see this. This is completely private.
Right, the school will see it because they need to for certain purposes, but when they're completing the FAFSA, they're not going to see that.
And then really quick, Alicia wanted just to make sure that whole where you said you could put in the information from the IRS. She knows where that is on the ISIR. Where is that on the application? Because she's missing that part.
So where is it on the FAFSA?
On the FAFSA.
Yeah, so I have some screenshots that we can look at in a second, but when you start the FAFSA application, there'll be a screen immediately that will say, do you provide consent and approval
Okay.
And
You want me to share my screen and I can bring it up? Is it on there?
yep.
Cool. Let's do that.
All right. So if you see this here, this is the FAFSA landing page. This is the first page when you go onto the FAFSA, okay? And you'll see that you can either start a new FAFSA, the 2627 will be released on October 1st. We just got that notification that it will be on time this year. I'm crossing my fingers, okay? You can edit a FAFSA or you can what's called accept an invitation for a FAFSA. So if you go to the next slide, okay, if you have not created an FSA ID, you would just go in and you would create an account, all right? If you already have an FSA ID, you would go right ahead and you would enter into the FAFSA, all right? And then it will give you a nice little welcome, and then you would choose who you are, whether you're the student or the parent completing this portion. Here, you come to what's the provide the consent and approval, okay? You need to do this, okay? And it's going to, what the consent and approval is going to do is it's going to allow the IRS to bring over that financial information. So there's a couple of screens for you here that they would have you go through. You click approve, and then boom, okay? It's going to import your information for you right onto your ISIR, okay?
Do we still do this? Do you want to keep going through this?
We depends on what your next question is.
Well, if this is still with the FAFSA, let's just sort of walk through it together.
Sure.
Do that.
So this is something that's fairly new over the past couple of award years, is a term called a contributor. Okay, and what a contributor is, every person that needs to complete the FAFSA. So if you are a dependent student, it would be yourself and your parents. If you are independent, it would be you. If you're married, it would be you and your spouse. Okay, everybody that needs to contribute to the FAFSA or their information is called a contributor. Okay, and again, it's based on your dependency status. So if you go to the next slide, okay, every contributor is going to be required to have their own FSA ID. Okay, so dependent student would be the student, the mom, and the dad. Okay, or however your family dynamic is. All right.
Rhonda, I'm going to have you monitor the chat right now because I'm sharing my screen, so I'm able to do that. So if there are questions up there, do you mind popping in? Cool.
And then if you are independent and you're married, it would be you and your spouse. Okay. And each person is required to have their own FSA ID, and they're all required to go on to the FAFSA to complete their portion of the FAFSA. All right. And how they do that is when the student starts completing the FAFSA, and let's just do a dependent student for example purposes. The dependent student will complete their portion of the FAFSA, then it will say invite your parent to the FAFSA form. And
Okay.
they would go ahead and they would enter in their parents' information. It would be their, first name, last name, social, email address, and they would hit send invite, and then the parent would receive a link. And the parent would then need to go on, click that link, and it will direct them to their portion that they need to complete.
Perfect.
So there's no more of, the student saying, oh, you know what, I'll just complete this for my parent. They can't. All right.
They can't do that. Okay.
Their own information.
Okay, perfect. All right. Are we good to stop the share on this right now?
Yep.
Great. Let me get back to it. Anything exciting happening in the chat, Rhonda?
Somebody is asking if, let's see, there's a dependent student that asked if their circumstances are not allowing parents from providing taxes. If the student selects yes, then they're only eligible for unsub, no Pell or sub. Is this correct? So Kath, can you explain a little bit about, that question comes up a lot.
Yeah, and Jackie, if you want to chime in at all too, but basically with the if you have a parent or excuse me, a student that has a parent that says, I am absolutely not completing the FAFSA, I am not assisting you in your financial aid endeavors, so on and so forth, then you can complete the FAFSA without parental information, and you'll get a reject code. And then with that reject code, the student is potentially then eligible for independent levels, Jackie, of unsubsidized loans.
No, it would actually be dependent level and it would be unsub
I don't
only.
track loans.
So no Pell, no sub, but they could get the full annual limit in unsub as a
Right.
dependent.
Fantastic.
All right, more questions in the chat before we move on. If parents are married, do they both need an FSA ID?
Yes.
If parents are divorced, do both have to complete the application?
If they're divorced at the time the application is being completed, the only parent reported is the parent that provides more than 50% of the support.
Okay. Perfect. And then I mean, I know the FAFSA application changed this past year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's supposed to be, from what I hear,
Easier
it's
for the student.
easier. It is easy. Okay, it's easier for the student. Are there main things on that FAFSA application that did change that like they used to ask that they don't ask anymore?
Yeah, they're trying to really streamline it. So in the past, it was like over 100 questions on the FAFSA. Now it's around 40 questions that they're asking you.
Okay.
And there's also something called skip logic, where if you answer a question a certain way, additional questions will not be asked because it's not relevant.
Oh, okay.
All right. And so they really tried to put some good algorithms in there that you're only going to be answering the questions based on certain answers that you've already done, based on dependency, marital status, things like that.
Okay. And so would you say it is much more user-friendly for a student?
It is. I think it is. Yep.
Okay. And it's pretty mobile friendly as well?
It is. You can do the mobile app. Absolutely.
Oh,
Yep.
there's an app for it.
Yep. You can do it on your phone. You just, again, it's logging into studentaid.gov and just completing the FAFSA.
If parents are separated, not divorced, if they're separated, then only one parent still has to be on the FAFSA, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Did you say if parents are married that they both have to sign? If they're married, do they both?
Yep. If they're married, they're both going to grant consent and approval.
Okay. Perfect. Really, really good questions. What question would a student choose on the FAFSA if they have a strained relationship since high school with their parent trying to submit a PJ for a dependency override?
So if they have an estranged relationship, they're still going to, there is a question in the FAFSA in regards to dependency overrides. And essentially they would complete the FAFSA as they're going. They will have what's called a provisional independent ISIR. And provisional meaning more information now needs to be obtained in order for the FAA to override your dependency status to independent. And with that, again, these are case-by-case circumstances. So the student would need to provide a statement indicating what the circumstance is and why they're requesting this dependency override. And then we always say, if you have additional backup documentation, again, if you have something official from like a court or school liaison, a counselor, anything like that, that can attest to that circumstance. And, and lastly, again, if that is not attainable, somebody that the student can reach out to for a third-party statement that can attest to that situation.
Okay. Now, once the FAFSA is completed, what does that student see?
So once the FAFSA is completed, it will tell you it's completed. They should get that SAI immediately. Okay, Student Aid Index, which is the number that is used to determine eligibility, how much eligibility for financial aid.
So they're given a number immediately.
Yep.
Okay. And walk me through that. What could some of the numbers be?
So this is where some of the changes have happened over the last couple of years. In the past, you would get an EFC, estimated financial contribution number, and that would range from 0 to whatever the Pell limit was, okay? And again, Jackie, feel free to step in if I'm, mincing words here. Now, they changed the EFC to a student aid index, SAI, and that helps to determine, I think, Pell eligibility a little bit clearer, all right? And you may be seeing a number now that full Pell eligibility, you'll have an SAI of negative 1,500, okay? And so there are certain formulas, Pell eligibility formulas that are in place for max Pell, minimum Pell, that, I don't know, Jackie, if you have a little bit more guidance on that than I do, but essentially that's the number that the financial aid officer or administrator is going to look at to determine how much aid that student is eligible for.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the SAI, they use it too. There's no Pell charts anymore like there have been in prior years before 24-25. So the SAI is compared to the maximum Pell and deducted from the maximum Pell, and that's kind of how you come up with your scheduled award, and then you do your prorations from there if necessary. It's also, the SAI is also used to do the needs analysis for loans and things like that. So that's what they'll see when they finish.
And
their
that only happens also if the parent has done theirs, right? Or they won't see anything. Yeah.
It
Okay.
depends on dependency status. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And then on the school standpoint, how long is it from the time the student submits it to when they get the ISIR?
So typically, what we see is 2 to 3 days from the
Okay.
time it's completed to the time that it gets to a school. Give or take a day on each end.
Okay. 2 to 3 days. And then what do they see?
So what's going to happen is the school is going to receive an ISIR, all right? Student is going to receive what's called a SAR report, okay?
So
And
what the student receives is different than what the school receives.
yep,
Okay.
exactly, okay? So the school is going to receive the ISIR, Institutional Student Information Record, all right? And basically, that is a line item of everything that the student inputted onto their FAFSA report, all right? And the ISIR goes to any colleges, universities, proprietary schools, any higher ed school that they put their school code on is going to receive a copy of that ISIR, all right? And the ISIR is pretty in-depth as far as the information that it provides for the school, meaning once the student submits the ISIR, it goes to the central processing system, okay, where essentially, if you never wanted the government to know anything about you, don't complete a FAFSA, all right? Because what happens is it goes through a lot of checks and balances with federal government agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, Social Security Administration, it's no longer Selective Service, NSLDS loan history, okay? All of that information is cross-checked based on what you provided on the FAFSA, and then once all that goes through their cross-checks, then it produces that ISIR report, in which now goes to the school, all right? And now that ISIR report is going to contain your student aid index, but it's also going to contain comment codes, otherwise known as C codes, that if there's any conflicting information, say, for example, citizenship, they want you to verify your citizenship, you would be flagged, and a student would have to provide documentation to verify their citizenship before aid could be dispersed. It will notify them if they're selected for verification and what verification
What
group.
other things would select someone for verification?
Typically, it is
It's typically citizenship.
well, that would be a comment code, a C code.
Okay.
For verification, the trend now is mostly if you are not providing consent, meaning you're going to manually input your taxes onto the FAFSA, which you can do, that is more likely going to be flagged for verification versus if you use the IRS, or excuse me, the FADDX to pull over your tax information. So you really should be pushing students and parents to transfer their tax information over versus manually inputting it. It will save a lot
Okay.
of time and a lot of burden.
Okay. And of course, now, which we were just talking about before we got on, verification is, it used to just be what, kind of random, and now it's like, hey, everybody gets a
Almost
verification.
everybody, yeah.
So I'm sure many of your audience can attest to this. Verification is chaotic right now. On June 6th, it slowed down a lot for the 24-25 award year. It was nice, it was manageable. But as of June 6th, the federal government decided to up the selections for verification for identity fraud. Okay. And so what they're focusing on is identity and tax information, but it is clearly for identity fraud. They flagged, I think, about 125,000 additional applications this summer. And then last week, they indicated they're flagging an additional 300,000 in the upcoming weeks. And it's just, the unfortunate thing about it is it's not a hard verification to complete, but without even some type of notice, you have schools, you have third-party servicers, anybody dealing with verification that went 0 to 100 in a matter of days. And, you need to put things in place in order to keep up with that volume. And nobody really had that notification that this was happening until it happened, basically.
And then how long are you in verification for? Like, how long does that take to clear?
It depends. It can be cleared really quickly, but if you're experiencing high volumes, now you have
That's what it is. Okay.
many students, and that's a huge effect on schools, because now they're delaying the ability to give estimated eligibility to their students or receive their disbursements because they haven't cleared verification yet. So it's really challenging. It's really challenging for schools, for servicers, for students, parents, everybody. It's affecting.
Not to put more work on you guys, but I'm sure Rhonda's like, give us all the work. If you're a school without a third-party servicer, this is
Oh, I
probably
can't even
super
imagine.
challenging. Isn't this a huge benefit to using a service like FAS?
I absolutely, not being biased, but yeah, there is
Right.
a huge thing because number one, we have a great department that knows the regulations and they know them well, and so compliance wise, that is our goal, 100% to keep it compliant. So we can look at the documentation just to know if that is acceptable or not acceptable for audit purposes. Plus, we also have the ability, at our company in particular, many of us are cross-trained. And so what we had to do personally is we had to increase our department by pulling some other people from other departments to help with the overload. And it was great to be able to do that because it would help us start really chipping away at the volume a lot quicker.
Okay, but this is something you could typically just do in-house without the help of another company. But like you're saying, this is increasing. Do we expect this to keep increasing? Or is there any news that maybe this is going to slow down?
I'm hoping it slows down after this big fall rush.
Okay.
Typically over the holidays it slows down, but really it's it's interesting times, I'll say, with the Department of Education in general, right? We're all aware
Yeah.
of that. And so I think we just kind of keep our eyes on things. We keep our eyes on the trends with the numbers that are coming in and out. If we see big spikes on anything, then we try to just plan accordingly for that.
Okay, so let's talk about the ISIR. What's changed about it? Do you want to go ahead and look at one? Do you want me to go ahead and share my screen?
Go right ahead.
All right, and you can just obviously kind of tell me where to move here.
All right, go ahead a few slides. Keep going, keep going, keep going. There we go. So I already went over this, but
We
basically,
can share this, right? Because I already told everyone we would. Okay, cool. All right, we will put this in the recording for tomorrow. We'll put a link to a PDF of this. Anyway, go ahead.
so, and I feel bad, I would make it look a little prettier if I was going to send it to
It
people.
looks great. It looks great. Everyone's like, just give me the info. I don't care. So.
That's just me. But anyway, so we already talked about this. The ISIR, it's going to contain your FAFSA data information, your processing results from the government and NSLDS history, and then it spits out that ISIR or that SAR for the student, all right? So what's different about the ISIR now is in the past, it used to be kind of like there were steps. Step one was the student information. Step two was the student's financial information, then the parents, then their information, you know, so it went in steps. Now the ISIR is made up into what's called blocks, okay? And so you have three main blocks of information where the first block is basically demographic information for the student. Then you get to the second block. That's where if they manually enter any financial information, consent, approval, signature, all of that stuff is right there. Okay. If you go to the third block, this is where you start seeing some NSLDS information and the match processing information. And you'll see there's a lot of stuff that will just make you go dizzy when you look at it. So if you look at an ISIR example here, and this is my name, so this is just a fake ISIR from our system. You know, every school has a different, potentially, if you don't use us or use another servicer or in-house, your ISIRs may look different. We take the information, we digest it, we make our own little pretty ISIR with our company colors and all that fun stuff on it. But basically, we've created the top block here where it says ISIR flags to kind of give the school some pertinent information right off the block. Okay, so you'd see that they have their SAI right there, the dependency status, when the application was first initially completed, and any flags for C codes or verification and such. You move down, go back, Jen.
Sorry, my bad. You said down. I was like, let's go.
I'm going quick, I'm going quick. You have comment section, that's where you'll get your C codes, and then you start going through your demographic information. You can go to the next slide. Again, non-financial information, student manually entered information if that was applicable. Then you start getting into the parent demographics.
Is all of this are there laws on like who can see this?
Yes. Yeah. You know, there are laws, there's certainly HIPAA laws with this and whatnot, or FERPA laws, excuse me, wrong profession. We got to be careful with FERPA. But basically, you know, you can share this with admissions, but there are certain entities, and I do apologize offhand because I don't have the specifics, but there are entities that you should not be sharing this information with and that you can share this information with. And I can certainly forward those over to you if anybody's interested in that. Okay.
Do you want me to stand?
Yep. If you go to the next slide, and again, you start seeing at the bottom here, this is processing information. This is where all your cross checks that go into with the federal government start to happen. You can go to the next slide. Same thing, keep going.
This is insane. I like did not expect something
Crazy.
to be this extensive.
Well, this is the one that really amazes me is all this NSLDS information. I mean, that's a lot of stuff right there, right?
Wow.
And then if you go, so the last page is really the one I want to highlight, okay? So this is, if you go to sort of the middle of this page on the left where it says student FTI information, this is an example of what the tax information looks like when it's been successfully pulled over by the IRS. And to know that it's been successful is if you look on the right-hand column, you'll see it at the bottom, it says 200 successful requests. Okay, that means that the information has been successfully pulled over and by the Department of Ed considered verified. No further information for tax purposes is needed. Okay, there are other codes. You would have a code 214 if they were a non-filer. Okay, and then you would have a code 203, which typically means that they manually entered their information, didn't give consent, therefore the IRS can't, or the ISIR can't find any consent. Okay.
Oh, great. Okay. Let me check our chat really quick to see if there were any questions about the ISIR. Do you guys see anything in there?
And Jen, if you have access to the chat questions and want to forward me any, I'm happy to.
Can you guys not see the chat?
I can see them, but you told us
Okay.
not to.
I can see it.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Okay. No, you can absolutely click on it. And then, well, afterwards, anyway, we're going to send you guys the full chat transcript. Angie, let's make a note to do that just so they can see sort of what people are asking. And that might be helpful for you guys if you want to send out an additional email to people just like kind of answering some of the questions in case we miss them. Okay, so we went over FAFSA. We went over the ISIR. Now I want to go over the money. All right, let's talk about awarding some people and what that looks like. And Jackie, this is, I know, your area of expertise. Let's talk about sort of what students would be expected to be awarded when it comes to grants and loans.
Yeah, so I mean, primarily what schools are awarding students are Pell Grants. Some schools participate in the SEOG program. So that's an additional grant that students might be eligible for. And then you've got your loans, like your sub, your unsub, and Parent Plus for dependent students. I did see in the chat someone had asked about calculations for Pell Grants based on the SAI. And when it comes to the Pell Grants, your students are either eligible for max Pell, minimum Pell, or calculated Pell. So if they're eligible for max or min Pell, that will be specifically noted on the ISIR. If it's not noted on the ISIR that they're eligible for one of those, then you would be calculating the Pell. And that's basically max Pell minus whatever the SAI is. If the SAI is negative, you substitute 0. In cases where the difference between max Pell and SAI is lower than the minimum Pell, then the students don't qualify for Pell. So if it's a calculated Pell, then they would be limited to, I think it's 740 is what it is this year. So if the result is less than that, then, and they're not flagged as min Pell, then they wouldn't get Pell at all.
Okay, so let's just talk about, let me just give you a random number for a cosmetology program and what someone could, how they could basically pay for it. Let's say a cosmetology program is $20,000. Okay, it's a 12-month program for $20,000. What, and someone is eligible for Pell. How much is covering what here?
So again, it depends on SAI. So if we assume that the student is fully Pell eligible, it also depends on hours in the program. So can we assume the program's 1,500 hours?
Let's do a 1,500.
Normally for a 1,500 hour program, we'd have 2 academic years. We'd have 0 to 900, 900 to 1,500. So in award year 1, the students would qualify for full annual limits. So full Pell, $73.95. Full sub would be 3,500 for grade level 1, and then unsub would be either 2,000 or 6,000, depending on what the dependency status is. If the student is dependent and the parent wants to apply for the plus loan and they get approved, they can borrow up to cost of attendance minus whatever the student is receiving. And then you'd have AY2 eligibility as well. Again, that would be AY2 is only 600 hours, so it's less than a full academic year, which means you have to prorate your annual loan limits. So off the top of my head, I want to say, hold on, I don't know, Pell. So 4930 would generally be what students would get for 600 hours. In Pell if there is 0 EFC. Or sorry, SAI. And then for loans, 3,000 for sub and either 1,333 or 4,000 for unsub.
So if a program is 1,000 hours, which a lot of states have cosmetology that's 1,000 hours, you get that full Pell for the 0 to 9, and then that 900 to 1,000, it's less. Basically, you don't get the full Pell for that.
Yeah, so anytime a student is enrolled for less than a full academic year, you have to prorate based on the hours to be completed. So you would take the annual limit of $73.95, multiply by 100 hours in the loan period or academic year, and divide by the 900-hour academic year definition. So I want to say it's like $822 or something like that.
Okay, Michelle had she has a question in the chat. Can you please explain the new 26-27 SAI cutoff announced where students will not be eligible if their SAI exceeds twice the max Pell award, $73.95.
Yeah, so there are some cases where an SAI is much higher than you would think it would be, and the student still qualifies for Pell. Something in the SAI or something in the Pell calculation, Pell eligibility calculation on the ISIR side comes up with that max or min Pell indicator. But if the ISIR or if the SAI is more than twice the max Pell, then even if the student would normally be considered Pell eligible, they would not be able to get Pell. So if their SAI was, say, 8,000, normally an SAI of 8,000 would not be Pell eligible, but they could have a min Pell indicator. So in that case, if they had the min Pell indicator, then they would still get the 740. A student that has an SAI of, say, 15,000 and has the min Pell indicator, because that's more than twice the max Pell award, even though they have that min Pell indicator, they're not Pell eligible for 26-27.
And this is all for programs that are at least 600 hours, correct?
Pell eligibility is only for programs that are at least 600 hours. Loans, programs that are less than 600 hours, I think they have to be at least 300 hours.
Okay,
in
you
order
can
to
still get a loan.
qualify for loans. So anything between $3 and $599, they could get loans, but no Pell.
And can loans cover expenses like daily expenses? Can you take out
Daily
extra
expenses?
money for it?
They can, yeah, they can, but it has to, the amount that the student is eligible for has to exceed direct costs, because Title IV aid will always go towards your direct costs first.
Okay.
So once you've covered the direct costs, if there's extra, that would allow the student to receive a credit balance that they could use for living expenses.
That they could use for that. Okay, perfect.
Jen,
all
do
right.
you process financial aid now? Are you enjoying this?
You guys are like,
You want to?
you guys are so smart. You guys are so really, really good. I want to make sure we talk about, because I said we would, the borrower's defense to repayment. How do you guys feel about talking about this? How are you feeling about it? Because is everyone calling you, freaking out about this? What does everyone need to know?
So, I mean, we have not gotten a lot of calls from clients on borrower defense. I think right now, I think schools are mostly concerned about the recoupment process that is part of the 2022 rules, where recoupment, honestly, and I did some research in prepping for this webinar, and I was actually surprised to find out that the department has had the ability to recover funds from schools for BDR claims ever since 2017. But they really haven't used it, except in big cases like, the Corinthian schools closing and all of that. And, if they're discharging billions of dollars worth of loans, there's a good chance they're going to come after your school. But they really haven't used it for smaller claims that I've seen. But I think the fact that the 2022 rules moved that front and center, schools are a little bit nervous about that. And the 2022 rules also really broadened the reasons that students can bring claims against a school, whereas the 2019 rules that were in place previously only allowed claims based on misrepresentation, and the students had to demonstrate financial harm in order for a claim to be approved. And in the 2022 rules, the reasons that a school can bring or a student can bring a claim are misrepresentation, omission of fact, breach of contract, aggressive or deceptive recruitment. Like, there's a whole array now of reasons that students can bring claims. So I think that makes it a little bit scarier. And I think schools are also getting claim information from the department, which wasn't really happening a few years back. So what I will say is, if you're getting information from the department saying that a student has made a claim against your school, don't ignore it. You're not required to respond to it, but any attorney that you talk to will tell you 100% review it and respond to it. Because if these 2022 rules do go into effect and recoupment becomes a thing, you want to make sure that you've put your 2 cents in as far as whether or not that claim should be approved or not. And you can only do that by responding to the claim. So definitely make sure you're doing that. But as of right now, the 2022 rules are delayed until 2035 because of the OB3 Act. So no loans until July 1st of 2035 will be adjudicated under the 2022 rules. And that's if it even goes into effect, because it's still under litigation. So we don't even know if it's going to exist in 2035. And we've got 2 more administrations coming in, and the BDR rules tend to change with every administration, especially when there's a party change. So it's really hard to say what's going to happen. I guess just be prepared, read through the regs regarding BDR. But right now, everything is still currently being processed under the 2019 regulations.
I mean, and this makes sense why every school pretty much has a compliance department, just to make sure you aren't doing anything shady and we aren't saying things to try to get people to sign on a dotted line if they really aren't ready, or yeah, more important than ever. There is a question I want to make sure, if you don't mind going over to the chat, Rachel asked. And thanks, Rachel, for asking your question. She's a regular webinar attendee, so I want to make sure we get her question for you. What is your position on providing an estimate on the initial FA appointment prior to the ISIR coming in? And then she's kind of asked a little bit more.
You can give, like you said, a best worst case kind of range scenario, I think would be good. Maybe this is, give them an example with full Pell and give them an example with no Pell. The loans generally won't change. They just may shift between sub and unsub, but the total that the student gets should be the same regardless, unless they have, aggregate loan limit issues or something like that. So I don't think it hurts to give them an estimate. And sometimes that can keep the student interested because they at least have some idea of what they might be eligible for. But just as long as you make sure that they know that this is, we'll adjust it once the ISIR comes in and we have the SAI and we can tell you exactly what you're eligible for, but it'll fall somewhere between these 2 numbers.
I think it's necessary. I just do. Like, I just feel like today people, they want to know how much the car is before they drive off the lot. Like, it blows my mind that when I talk to schools and they're like, oh yeah, we enroll people with them not knowing anything, them not even doing their FAFSA yet. I'm like, who is signing? What? That is crazy to me. I mean, and then you find out that their start rates are like, their enrolled to start rates are like 50% because they're like, oh yeah, their FAFSA wasn't done, or this, they're in verification. I'm just like, well, yeah, I mean, if you had moved financial aid up in the process, you wouldn't have to run into that position at all. So that's why I wanted to do this webinar, quite frankly, is that I feel like we need to be giving estimates at the beginning. I feel like we need to be having financial conversations and letting people know, like, this is what it costs to go to school. This is generally what we see. You could fall in a range of here. I think those conversations are important to have at the beginning. Rhonda, tell us about FAS. Why would someone use FAS? Why use you?
Well, one thing is the personalized care that you get from the staff. As you know, most of our staff has been in the business for many, many years. So I feel like what sets us apart from some of our competitors is that they can call and actually talk to a person. Because I think you're figuring this out, Jen, that there is a lot that goes on with financial aid and your head's spinning. And we can provide you with the best software in the world that can do almost anything. But sometimes you need to talk to a person. Sometimes you need some guidance that is not, automated. You need to talk to someone. So that's where we really strive, is the customer service, because you just need to ask a question. Like, it's a quirky situation. You're not sure what to say to the student. So you need to call on someone. So we have great software that we provide to our schools, but I feel like it's our customer service and overseeing and being there for our schools when they have a difficult situation or a really crazy question that they really need help with.
I mean, and I feel like your retention is high. I feel like it's always the same clients you have, and you're adding more and more. And you guys have a fantastic seminar you do every April, which I think is really unique, really great. I've been to it, and I'm coming again.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're in
Go
high
ahead and
demand.
announce where it is to everyone because it's in a new location.
Yes, it's in San Diego, Coronado Island. I hope I'm saying
Coronado,
it right. I'm not
yeah.
from California, but yeah, so we usually have it on the East Coast because our company is on the East Coast, and that's, you know, we used to have it in New England, and then for many years we were in Florida, which everybody loved because of beautiful weather. But then we felt bad for our West Coast clients because we have clients all around the country. So we're like, let's try to do something on the West Coast. This is our first time doing it, so hopefully it all goes well. But yes, it's the end of April. It's going to be in beautiful San Diego. So we feel maybe schools that are coming from the East Coast can make it a vacation.
Yeah.
But it will be a great event. We're working on now, you know, gathering up all the speakers and
And you
sponsors.
have classes like this, right? Where people are asking
Yes, yes,
questions and you
yeah,
guys are able to kind of go through all this, which is,
yeah.
and then I'm just like, you know, the dummy that's like, let's talk about TikTok or something crazy, like just to lighten the mood. Cause I feel like
They
every
need a
time I come in,
break.
everyone's in there and they're like so overwhelmed. And I'm like, hey, I did game shows last year.
That's right. Well, people need that, Jen. It's a nice variety because we obviously have
Gotta
to
mix it
talk
up.
about serious stuff, but we do try to bring in a little bit of fun or a little bit of just outside the box as well,
Yeah.
just to make it so they can get through it and not be like, you know, so stressed out at the end. You know, we
You're
want to
so
try to
great.
explain things, but also have them enjoy themselves. So
And if someone wants to use your services, Rhonda, should they just email you? Do you want me to give them?
I would love
You
that.
you
Yeah.
can
If they have any
TikTok DM
questions or
her
anything.
and you can buy her dresses on TikTok. You can do that too.
Yes.
Love it. Go ahead, put your email in the
Oh, okay.
Rhonda, is it dot?
It's ronda@fasinc.net.
Perfect. Yes, y'all just go ahead and email Rhonda if you're interested in using the third-party services. You don't have to as a school. Again, you can do a lot of this in-house, but I just feel like more and more schools are moving toward having someone help them in this area. We will get the full transcript of everything from the chat with things we missed, and if we can add that into an additional email, we will. But Rhonda, Kathy, Jackie, we're going to send you guys the attendee list so you can have it and you can even do some initial outreach if you want to get in touch with any of these people. Before we go, Chelsea has a question. Could we please clarify if I heard this right? Did Jackie say students could qualify for loans if a program is under 600 hours? Yes.
Yeah, that's true. As long as the program is approved on your e-car, it has to be at least 300 hours and at least 10 weeks. But yes, they can qualify for prorated loans.
Guys, this was great. You all are much smarter than me. This was seriously a different type of webinar. I feel like a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth, and this was more interview style, which I love learning. I learned a ton from you guys today. That was my first time ever seeing an ISIR. So thanks for sharing that with me. Holy crap. I was like, this is huge. There's so much on here. We are going to put that PowerPoint in a PDF. We are going to send out the recording tomorrow morning in your inbox. If you signed up for this webinar, you will have the YouTube link to the recording of this webinar, as well as that PowerPoint. So if you guys have like additional questions and you want to reach out to Rhonda, please do that. We're going to do more of these. We did an FA, I think it was last year, maybe we did.
Yeah, we did the e-car updates, which is another one that could take
Another
hours.
We should definitely, yeah, we're going to have you guys back again. You guys are our financial aid experts. We really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for joining. Thanks for all the really kind words in here. Y'all, it's Labor Day. It's Labor Day.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
I think we should all just take off tomorrow and just have like an extra long weekend. Do we feel good about that? I'm approving it. Tell your boss. Just kidding. All right, it was fun, you guys. Love you, ladies. We will see
Thank
you
you.
guys next month for our September webinar. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.